I think stand-up is one of the most effective forms of messaging to like the public. I think that there's a lot of serious messages that can be conveyed through stand-up. Some of my favorite comedians, there's a lot of depth to their stand-up. I
Mm.
love it when I see a successful immigrant comedian because a lot of their jokes, if you really chalk it down and you go to the skeleton of what it is, there's trauma. There's trauma behind that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important quality to have in life as someone who has had similar experiences. You need to be able to laugh at it. You need to be able to find the humor in it. And the best way to also process that and like kind of go through that emotional psychological process is and is to like tell other people about it, you know, and
Mm.
at the same time get a positive reinforcement about a memory that's actually pretty terrible to you. But like you not only are you educating people about something, but you're also like making them remember it with a positive memory rather than
Mhm.
like yelling at them and telling them, wow, you guys have done this to us. Wow, you treat immigrants so terribly. Instead, if I make a joke about it, it's like you still get the message, but it's like subconscious, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And I came across that video on YouTube. It's called Veer Be Stupid Commencement Speech. It's called Be
All right.
Stupid. Year now, early last year, a little bit before I started, the first time I did stand up, I actually went to see him in
Oh,
Chicago with a friend. So I saw him live. That was the first time I saw a comedian live.
that's awesome.
Um, and I will say, I think it was the best 1 hour or even longer of comedy I've ever watched, like live or recorded.
Hmm.
I was just nonstop laughing, and that's one of the comedians that, as I was mentioning earlier, that really has messaging with what he says.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and it's just, well, you know, I also understand the Indian material and all of that.
Mm.
You through that, and I think that was one thing that inspired me to say, hey, like there's someone that has mastered this craft, and to me, in my opinion, has perfected it, and that inspires me. I want like why have I never tried? You know, what if I try and what if someday I could get to it that doesn't level? always get through, but I'm pretty nervous and like I feel like internally I'm shaking sometimes, especially because those were the first few times I performed. But that was a very mellow performance. The second half or like the last quarter, I would say, was material that I had already performed before.
Hmm.
And that was the first time I had recycled material, but even like the beginning was new material. So that was kind of what it was about. I just kind of I committed to it, so I went through with it. And I
Hmm.
just went up there and just said what I wanted to say. And a big thing to anyone who wants to try comedy, when you're starting out, just keep going. Just keep going. Like, if you're not getting a laugh, if you're not getting anything like that, just keep going. I remember the first time that was one of the things I was proud of, that I didn't stutter and I didn't like lose track of my mind. And just find the confidence in yourself to just continue and deliver your material. And I promise you that someone will find something funny. And if not, you're just gonna learn from that experience. So kind of going on a tangent there, but that's just something I'd want to say too.
Who is your favorite comedian?
I would say I'm gonna say three of my favorite comedians that I think at the moment I can easily say are my top three. So Veer Das is one of them that we've talked
Mm.
about. Another one that's a controversial comedian is Dave Chappelle.
Uh-huh.
Um, but he's one of the comedians that I think is the most masterful at having a message behind his comedy. And not everyone is going to agree with someone's opinion or someone's messages, but in terms of the craft and in terms of an art, my God, he's like a legend.
Yeah.
He's beyond mastered it.
Mm.
So Dave Chappelle is one of those, and there's someone called Mohammed Amer, and he's a Palestinian American comedian, and he just had a show on Netflix called Mo. Season one came out, and it got renewed for season two now. And before that, he had two specials on Netflix. And what's interesting about him is he used some of the joke because his specials were about his life, and the show is also like loosely based on his life.
Mhm.
So it was nice to see like jokes that I've seen from him that are really iconic to like actually being like acted out in the show or like shown in the show in a different form. And I've also seen him live. I've had the pleasure of seeing him live 2 or 3 months ago in Chicago as well. Those are the only two comedians I've seen live, but it's a blessing to yeah to see them. I
Yeah,
was
that's
born in India and I grew up in China, and now I'm here in the U.S. So um, there are different parts of me in that sense, and so there isn't just one comedian that inspires me because my favorite comedy is ones that has to do with culture, talks about identity, talks about experiences and the traumas and things like that.
yeah.
And so like with Indian comedy, like or like the Indian identity of mine, like Veer Das, inspires that part a lot. But whereas like on the other side, like Mo Amer like talks about certain things about having an Arab mom, and my mom is Arab, and like a lot of those things are things that I relate to as well.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, oh my God, I can't believe I've not mentioned this comedian, Maz Jobrani. His name is Maz Jobrani. He's an Iranian American comedian. And that is a comedian that like my parents love. His comedy is pretty like PG. It's pretty okay for everyone to watch. And man, I'm sorry, Maz. Like I didn't mention you in my top three, but he's amazing as well. And so like for him, he like inspires me about the Persian side of me,
Mm-hmm.
so his jokes are things that I would hear in my family, growing up, like about our own culture, because we can joke about it. Because living in other cultures, you get an outside perspective of the culture that you identify with or you come from.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it's not a one word answer. That's kind of my
Yeah.
answer for that. Yeah.
If you could have dinner with just one comedian, any comedian, but only one, who would it be? And why?
I think the person that I think I would have no idea how the dinner would go in a way, or in a different way to say that, maybe I would have the most to learn from is Dave Chappelle. The person that I think would be like, I know would be a very great dinner would be with Maz Jobrani, because like I know we have like similar sense of humor. But the comedian I'd be really curious to, I would have dinner with Veer Das to like really learn his creative methods, and like how like the question you asked me, I want to ask him that question. Like I want to say like how do you like go about your material? How do you consolidate
Mm-hmm.
all of it? But luckily he's pretty active on social media, so like I think he had a post where he like mentioned something about it, so there was something to learn there. But um, yeah, with Dave Chappelle, I feel like he would just say it just comes from me. Like, it's just
Yeah.
that's the type of like person he is. So
Mm.
he's just in the legendary status now. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Do you have any crazy experiences from any shows that you performed at or that you attended? Just anything that like kind of out of the
So
ordinary or wild.
hmm yeah, so I performed at a comedy club called the Jukebox in Peoria. And over there, I decided that I wanted to tease the crowd. So for those who don't know, like the part of Illinois where our college is and where I still live is very predominantly white. And so Peoria is also, a pretty white city. And so I knew before going that the crowd would be mostly white. And so when I was performing on stage, I asked a question to set up my joke, and the question I asked was, "What are some stereotypes we have about Indian people? What are some stereotypes you guys have about Indian people?" And I was luring them in, like I wanted them to come at me because it was
Yeah.
gonna fuel my joke.
Mm.
And there was complete silence. No one said anything, and I was like, come on, white people, I'm giving you a pass. Like, tell me what you want. Like, it's all good. Again, like crickets. Like one lady was like sipping her drink, like complete silence, right? I had two friends from Knox, even they're people of color, even they were like completely quiet, okay? But because they're not Indian, right? And
Yeah.
then out of this silence, one guy in the audience, he goes, "You keep taking our jobs." So, what
And
do I want to be known for? Hmm. I think something I've already started seeing in my life is I want to be to others what I had. And when I talked about my favorite comedians, um, they inspire me. They they talk about moments that a lot of those, the four that I've mentioned, they are my part of the reason why they're my favorites is because they spoke on something that I thought no one else understood,
hmm
that I thought no one else has ever experienced and no one would get it.
Yeah.
And I felt alone in some of those things. And when I watched their joke about it or their material, like I was like, wow, someone gets me. Like this is not just me. There's other people, and first of all, this person has a special on Netflix, so like there must be other people that get it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I want to contribute to. That's something I want to be a part of. And at this everyone is still unique in their own way, and so I think there's things that I've gone through that may also be unique in their own ways, and I want to be able to share that. And I want someone else sitting at home, in another country, like watching on their laptop, I want them to be able to watch that and say, someone understands me, someone
Yeah.
gets me, and they're making me laugh about something that I've struggled with in my life. So that's that. I think that would be like the best gift to have out of doing comedy. If I could have that effect on a larger audience, I think like in terms of a legacy, that would be beautiful. That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That was very insightful and very well said.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, and so thank you for coming on here with us and thank you for everything you've shared. I think
Mhm.
it's really important to, like promote comedians of different backgrounds. And so it's also really great to have like your insight of like the diverse comedians that you like. And so hopefully like from people watching this interview, like more people then look into them as well and like continue to
Mhm.
promote different kinds of people, which is really great.
Like, thank you so much for having me. Like, this is my first interview ever, and I know that I don't have a lot of material out there right now, and it's gonna be pumping out soon, I promise. And so thank you for like taking a chance on me and like
Of
having this
course.
interview,
Yeah.
and I'm really excited to like work together. Okay.